So the suspense there continues. Moving ahead now, and what would come as a big relief for telecom players, sources have said that the Union Cabinet has approved the proposal to waive bank guarantee requirements. Sources have told us that this will pave the way for telcos to receive bank guarantee waivers for spectrum acquired before 2022. Telecom Minister Scindia had earlier said that a waiver, if any, would apply for the entire sector. The Cabinet has already waived the requirement for bank guarantees for spectrum acquired prospectively through auctions. That's 2022 and 2024 auctions. Now, the Cellular Operators Association has welcomed this move and said that the move will help reduce financial burden on the industry. The association added that this decision will enhance cash flow, free up capital and enable capital expenditure in the industry. And well, for more on this, we're now joined by Balaji Subramanian, Vice President of IIFL Securities. Mr. Subramanian, thank you so much for joining us. First question, in terms of impact, what would be the bearing on the three telecom players with respect to waiver of bank guarantees? How much do they stand to benefit now with getting more liquidity, with getting their bank guarantees back for the pre-2022 spectrum?
Thank you for having me on the show. As far as this waiver is concerned, obviously the biggest beneficiary will be Vodafone Idea, because considering the large payouts that they face once the moratorium on spectrum payments is lifted from October 1st of 2025, the kind of bank guarantees that they would have had to post was almost 25,000 crores. And that number is much lower for both Jio and Bharti, around 3,000 to 4,000 crores each. That is because they have already prepaid a significant portion of the liabilities pertaining to the earlier auctions. So the biggest beneficiary will be Vodafone here. And in the case of Vodafone, it also assumes importance because they have been looking to raise debt funds for the past few months. They are looking to raise 25,000 crores of debt, and typically any lender measures its exposure to a corporate using the sum of funded exposure and non-funded exposure. So here, bank guarantees form a portion of the non-funded exposure. So if banks do not have to, provide guarantee to Vodafone Idea, that would mean that
Sure.
they would be having more capital to lend to Vodafone Idea in case they decide to go ahead and lend. So that means the debt raising process of Vodafone Idea also receives a boost.
Sure. Let me ask a follow-up question that does this action by the government on the policy front perhaps seem like an afterthought? In 2021, the government had clarified its position that, look, we're comfortable with the idea of not having bank guarantees prospectively. Should this have been something that was done back in 2021 and not wait till the end of 2024 to grant this relief?
So, that is something which can be always, debated. The thing is that, you end up taking a more incremental approach, because back in 2021, no one really knew how things would pan out 3 years down the line, because the AGR curative petition was dismissed in the interim. And there is also this increasing trust on the government to ensure that there are three private players in the market. So I think, they could have always done it even 3 years back. But, these things, typically when a government looks at these things, it will be more incremental in nature rather than provide, use up all the bullets in one shot.
Right. Also, just looking at it from a face value, this decision that has been taken by a cabinet, on face value, yes, it's applicable across the sector, but it's not lost on any of the stakeholders that this move and benefits majorly Vodafone Idea. Having said that, what does this do for the finances of Vodafone Idea, or does it require further policy impetus from the government? Is it required more perhaps in terms of a greater government stake, in terms of perhaps AGR relief? Are there more impetus required from the government to stabilize the ship, so to speak, for Vodafone Idea?
On the last earnings call of Vodafone Idea, the management indicated that lenders are awaiting clarity on two matters. One is the bank guarantee waiver, which has now come through. The other one is, what the government does on the AGR burden itself. The company had mentioned on the call that they have made representations to the government on the merits of the curative petition that they had filed in the Supreme Court, even though the court gave an unfavorable verdict. So they said that some of those arguments are still relevant, and they have requested the government to look into it. So of course we don't know what can be the kind of relief which the government can give, because on one hand you have to it is a balancing act. On one hand you have to ensure that Vodafone Idea remains a reasonably competitive third player, while on the other hand you can't risk the you can't run the risk of
Sure.
getting a content of court this thing. So I think the area where there is a clear flexibility for the government is to potentially extend the moratorium by a few more years.
Timeline.
So that means that, of course, the
Sure.
cash burden may not go away. It might happen 3-4 years down the line, but at least that will give some headroom for the company to mend its finances, raise debt, stem its subscriber loss, and complete its capex program.
Right, Mr. Subramanian. It's again a tricky task, a tricky balancing act for the government as well as for Vodafone Idea, taking a decision, one, of course, on the bank guarantee waivers, and the other, of course, on the AGR front. A decision is still awaited. We had questioned the minister last month. He hadn't given any clarity, he had refused to comment on whether any AGR relief is in the works. Mr. Subramanian, thanks once again for joining us and sharing your perspective.